Well, now, some people might say it's out of your place to comment on situations which you are not involved in. And that might be absolutely right when you say that, because just last week on the episode that came out before this, because that's how it works. There's one before, there's one after, there's one during. And someone in the path to, on the path to spirituality would say, fuck the previous episodes and fuck the future episodes. All that matters is today. But just to jog your memory and do other things. I spoke about worrying and discovering or paying attention to things that affect you immediately, in the immediate vicinity of things, in your touchable region, in your zone, and not things that are halfway across the universe. In fact, I'm more interested in things that are halfway across the universe, even though I don't understand all the various nebulas and the various galaxies and the various star systems and the various universes, the multiverses, whatever. I sometimes just listen to this fucker for 5 minutes, Neil deGrasse. He's on the grass, the deGrasse Tyson. Just want to ask you, is he colored or is he white? I don't know. And this is the beauty of being someone like me. I can't tell, and I like the guy for his knowledge and for the way he presents his information. And I know Tiger Woods is black because everyone's like, Tiger Woods, the first black golfer, or Barack Obama, the first black president, or Hillary Clinton, the first, something like that. But I don't know. Is he? Could he be? I don't know. Possibly. He sounds like someone. He sounds like what a black person would sound like. But then again, I would be wrong by assuming, because that's stereotyping how black people speak. But he has that energy, he has that bubbliness, he has that commanding voice. So yeah, let me know what color he is. Anyhow, so the thing I mentioned is a halfway across the universe. The thing with the reason I bring this up is, why is there so much fucking nonsense going around the what's his name? What Djokovic is he? Some Djokovic. Fuck, what is his first name? No, it's Rafael Nadal. It's Roger Federer. Not Goran Djokovic. That was Goran Ivanisevic. And when we went to Croatia, which also was a part of the old Yugoslavia, Serbia, Kosovo, Montenegro. So, he didn't say the word. It's just how the country is. We went on a yacht. It was actually a boat, and I've spoken about this. It was a boat which we were scammed into believing that was a yacht, and we paid for Yacht Week, which was actually Boat Week, which doesn't sound as fucking good as Yacht Week, where we had to have bath out of the tap in the sink. Yeah, pay a lot of money for that experience, and you won't be very happy with that country. But we had a great captain on the boat whose name was Goran Stojilovic. Stojilovic. Yeah, exactly. It's a mouthful. That's what his girlfriend said. Wife now. But what Djokovic? I don't know. Anyway, so he got an exemption, if you haven't followed the news, down south in Australia, to not be a part of the vaccinated group that can enter the country for the Australian Open. So he got an exemption. I don't know. He's being very sort of secretive about why he got an exemption. Maybe he has AIDS. Maybe he has, other issues. Maybe he has gonorrhea. Who knows? Maybe he has syphilis. But he hasn't come out and said why. I don't know the entire story. As you know on this podcast, I don't do all my research. It's enough so I can present just enough to you. So that way it keeps you going, well, what the fuck has he just said? Is any of it true? So that way you go do the work, and then you just feel happy about yourselves for doing a little bit more work than you should have done. So he was first given a visa based on this exemption of a vaccine mandate because of certain facts that he presented to the Tennis Committee of Australia and certain authorities in the region that was, which covers Melbourne. Is that where it is? I think the Australian Open's in Melbourne. But then again, Australia, the Prime Minister fucking said, no chance, Goran, whatever your name is, no chance, go run for your money. No chance, Serbia, what's a good Serbian name? Milosevic is the last name. That's not a good last name. Aren't they all called, like, just in Russia, everyone's called Vlad, or everyone's called, like, Ivan. Just like that, there should be 2-3 names. There's Goran and, shit. I can't really think of anyone. Goran was our captain. There was another captain, Jussipe, Joseph, but Jussipe. So let's call him Jussipe Djokovic, all right? Maybe brother of Djokovic. Jussipe. Hey, so Scott Morrison said, hey. By the way, Scott Morrison, the guy who Joe Biden said that fellow down under. So he clearly is fucking itching for a fight and he wanted to take it out on someone. So comes along on stage left is Mr. Jussipe Djokovic saying, I don't need a visa because I am Djokovic, number one player in the world. And I sound Russian, but fuck it. This guy who's presenting podcast can only do one or two accents. So I will forgive him. He said, I have exemption because I have certain conditions which I've divulged to the relevant committees that I don't need visa. I am on the list to be cleared because I am number one and I have 31 Grand Slam in the making in the singles category. And then Australia's dick was fucking bruised, so they said, Scomo. Like, now why fucking mate? Not on my watch. Hey, Joker fucking son of a Jussipe Gosovic, son of a bitch. I'm going to make sure, I don't know why he suddenly became Russian, but he said, I'm going to make sure, mate, that he get on the next fucking flight on my watch. Because you know what? I'm not letting anyone in or out in my country. Hey, suddenly it sounded weird there. In my country, because I'm Australian and I fucking ensure that. I fucking, yeah, that's fucking right. And Joe Biden, cunty motherfucker, called me fella from down under. Hey, old prick. Hey, throw him on the barbie. Make sure, fucking. That's pretty much my vocabulary. Australian vocabulary running around to our rhyme. So then a judge apparently said, no, he's Jussipe Djokovic. He used to get overruled the cancelled visa. So the visa was reinstated. First of all, it was cancelled because the Prime Minister stepped into this tennis fiasco. Fucking sport, man. Just play a bloody sport. Take a ball, give it a tennis racket, just put some cameras in, give him the fucking terminal at the Australian Melbourne International Airport. Fucking too much bloody intention to something as unimportant. In my opinion. Clearly mentioned, in my opinion. If he doesn't play, so what? Let the fucker's ego get bruised. Okay, next year he'll come and get 31st one. Why does he have to play it? Why does the world have to fucking come to a standstill because of this stupid cunt's fucking tantrums? Anyhow, now it's been reinstated. He can play, but everyone's fucking making noise about it. I don't understand. Sometimes there's too much noise about things that don't need to be even spoken about. He didn't get a visa. Fucking, I got rejected 3 times for a US visa, and I'm speaking about it now, 20 years later. The first time they said potential immigrant. Second time they said potential terrorist. Third time, I don't know what they said, but they said rejected for a student fucking visa. First of all, I'm not going to move to the US. Hey, I have a chance, but I'm not going to do it now either. Second, guys, I don't think I'm going to be bombing too much. I mean, I haven't been on stage in a while, but even otherwise, I don't want... it's too much hard work, and I don't have any ideology that I believe so strongly in that I'm going to go ahead and do something so violent. Unless, of course, lighting farts. I've done that. That's the closest I've come to blowing up shit. But thirdly, I don't know why they rejected me. But then I got my visa, and I went there. And no one gave a shit. Not Scott Morrison, not anyone. The president at that time was who? 2000 was George Bush. He never said, hey, boy. Hey, Shandy, boy. Listen, not on my watch. I'm going to make sure. But, yeah. No one cared. No one gave a fuck when I entered the country. When I left the country, no one gave a fuck. So why? Not that I'm Djokovic, not that I'm number one tennis player in the world, but still, dude, he didn't get his vaccine. He's an anti-vaccine person. He claimed that he had COVID, so he's exempt because one of the rules under which you can get exempt for this particular thing, or get an exempt letter, is that if you're just recovering from COVID or you have other underlying medical conditions, which is weird if you're a number one tennis player, top athlete in your sport. What is the medical condition you have? An impotent fucking cock, son? Maybe not. I don't know what he has. Maybe he's a great guy. He's a vegan, so maybe that's his medical condition for terms of exemption. I don't know the guy. I have nothing against the guy, but I just feel it's too much attention for a celebrity again. And there are too many people who are pro-Joko, anti-Joko, pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine. This is where all the cunts come in again, be like, hey, there's a new playground for us to yell at each other from and on. So that's what's happening. Too much attention for things that don't deserve the noise. But I suppose this stuff will play itself out. That's the nature of the game. But then again, COVID is back. Omicron is making its presence felt, and people will play tennis, do whatever they must. But I don't want to make it all about my rantiness about things happening in the world. Yeah, I suppose, dedication that has got him to where he is. He deserves it. A pat on the back, or a little spank on the rump, you little naughty Serbian boy. But anyway, he's a big man in the world and I'm nobody. But this is the way I just express my opinions. And if you like what I hear, of course, do tell a friend, because I've got a great guest coming up on the other side of the podcast. She's a lovely lady from Australia. Hey, did that happen coincidentally? Or did you just plan the introduction after recording the episode? Who knows? That is something which we'll all have to discover at a later time. Later. I never get the former latter, the now and later. Actually, I do. I just use it wrongly, and I want to cover my ass and get an exemption from being called a cunty English speaker. Anyhow, her name is Tsu Shan Chambers. If you're looking at the spelling of her name, even I was confused the first time she reached out to me. She actually reached out to me to audition for a movie she's making in 2022. We are in the year. But circumstances have basically ensured, or not ensured, that I didn't fit the role, or the role didn't fit me, which is totally cool. But Tsu Shan is a fantastic human being. She and I speak about her story of how she got to where she is, the things that influenced her life, how her parents moved from one part of the world to another part of the world, growing up in Australia as an Asian, a woman of Asian descent, the things that influence her work and that inspire her to do what she does, or the things that drive her. I don't know if inspire is the right word, but she's a filmmaker, optometrist. She's done, if you read that fucking description, I don't know why I'm going on about it, but fun person to chat with. We've connected a few times before this for the movie, which of course she'll tell you about. Possibly, I don't know if we covered that, but she'll tell you about the other movies she's done, because hey, if you don't cover one, you cover other things you do. If you don't, then you eventually will find out on her website, which is also listed in the description. And in a nutshell, lovely human being, lovely woman, lovely conversation. And as always, it's happening here on the SoapyRao show. So do tell a friend. And if you haven't already, share the motherfucking podcast, my friend. Share it. Share it like you've never shared before. Share it like a person giving out free bread. Or share it like a person giving out free blowjobs on the docks. Whichever analogy suits you. All right, so enjoy the conversation. Thanks as always for listening. Appreciate it. And goodbye. God bless. See you on the other side. Tsu Shan Chambers, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Very good, Sandeep. It's so lovely to speak with you.
Did I get your name right? Because I'm terrible at spellings, and when I looked at your spelling, I'm like, oof, I'm gonna have a tough one.
I know, but you did really well. You had a good memory. I think when we first spoke, it's pronounced Suzanne, and yeah.
Yeah, because I tried to get it right with my wife, and I mean, get your name pronounced right, not other things. But I was like TSU, SHA, and I'm like, is it? How do I say it without making a fool of myself? She's like, just ask her. I'm like, yeah, that works. So how are you?
Okay.
How are things is it sunny Australia, or is it it's summer for you guys, right?
Well, it's meant to be sunny Australia. It's a bit forecast rain and a bit gloomy. It's
well, no fires, right? That's a good thing.
Yes, not this year. There's always some weather, something happening down here.
Yeah.
We've had the floods, we've had everything, I think. Drought.
Yeah, it seems like everyth's been thrown. It's kind of like equally proportioned, right? Like the parts of the world have got different things. Like usually where I live in Bangalore, in November, it start getting cold because we're at a sort of bit of a height, like on a plateau, but we don't get any extreme weather. I think you've been, but we had like rain nonstop, like thunderstorms throughout November and in other parts. So it seems like nature's just sort of throwing shit at the world, saying, let's see how you guys cope with it. And then Greta Thunberg is just violently yelling to the stars, saying, do something. It seems like nature doesn't care about her to start with.
It's all consequences, you see, because as they say, like a butterfly flaps its wings or a bird flaps its wings in South America, and the consequences of the wind shifting or whatever the thermo is doing, then it hits and affects us on the opposite side of the world, and we end up getting a thunderstorm or something. Like there's always we're always connected, I think.
No, I think that's absolutely true. And sometimes I just think of the scale of it, living in India, 1+ billion people. I'm sure there's a little bit of weight issue going on in our country, right? I'm not talking about average weight. I'm talking about how many of a billion people taking footsteps, doing things. There is definitely, I feel bad for the planet, man, taking so much weight.
I do. And even with Christmas, like going shopping and, buying food for Christmas dinner or something, I just think we're such a small population, if you know what I mean. Like even going to the shops, this local community, and you think about all the food that's there, and then I actually think and go, wow, like, can you imagine the world population? How much food, how much resources, just right? Like how much seafood you're going to go through.
It blows my mind. Like when I never go to malls. I find them claustrophobic. I find them convenient, sadly.
India, yes.
But yeah. No, I mean, generally, I find like I don't like malls, but it's convenient at the same time because I don't have to walk down a sidewalk, which we don't have in India. But I just go to these malls and I just think, okay, the food court, they have these shops, and this one mall which probably has 500 people generating so much waste, and that's in one small little corner of one neighborhood. How much are we putting out? How much are we eating? And how much, it's ridiculously large, the amount.
Yeah. And that's the question, is it sustainable? Right.
Definitely not. But I love the arguments which people are like, we have to protect the planet. And I say the planet's going to be absolutely fucking fine. We're the ones who are fucked because the planet has been around for 5 billion years. And I think that was originally said by a lot of scientists, right? Like, why are we going on the planet? Yeah, we wiped out species. We've done so many things which are horrific. And I was reading somewhere, like Yuval Harare's book where he talks about the initial settlers in Australia, and it's not even the people who are sent from England, but I'm talking about the original settlers who came from the different migrant parts, like the Aboriginal population, and how they just wiped out like birds which were like 100 feet tall who couldn't fly, and there were these massive mammals which were just wiped out on the continent of Australia. And I'm just talking about that because now we look at the pandemic, and suddenly like 1 year of radical change for us, like, oh my God, what have we done? It's crazy how.
Well, I don't know if it's the world kind of karma kind of biting us now, because now they're kind of, it's like almost like the virus is wiping off the human race, or it's got the potential.
But it's not doing a damn good job of it.
Well, but yeah, it's like every 100 years, there's some plague or something that kills off, part of the population.
Yeah. There's a guy who actually said that. He said, I believe this is a theory that every 100 years they release some kind of thing from the Spanish flu. And now we fast forward to 2020 to balance out this growth of population so that there's enough food. And it's done intentionally by whoever, the WHO. That's his theory. He's just some random guy. But you know what? It's not beyond belief.
Yeah. Well, whether it's WHO or whatever, I just think it could just be the environment, fighting back. The earth finally making going, well, you've kind of stuffed us up, so here you go, deal with this.
If Mother Nature, whoever she is or whatever pronoun she wants to go by, if she's listening, I don't think she's doing a good job. I think she's lost a little bit of her oomph.
Well, that's the thing. Us humans, we're kind of, not really. Well, I was going to say top of the food chain, but not really actually, because then you've got the viruses. So
yeah. But I think we're annoying. I think we're annoyingly clingy. We don't let go. We're like that friend who never gets the hint and keeps coming along on the date with you. I think that's
we're all going to win, right? Yeah. It's the human ego, I think, or whatever. But yeah, so it's tricky. It's tricky. Yes, and it's hard to kind of, I think of. You've got to be really aware, right? And consciously aware every time, every day, like little things, recycle. Like everything that you're doing has consequences. So
but that's the problem, right? When someone like you or me is worried about, is aware about our consequences. So when we do eat, like, take away, and we like, oh my God, there's another plastic box which has to either be recycled or reused or whatever the use with that we put. But I don't know how it is in Australia, but there's an emerging population in India who didn't have access to any of this, right? Whether it's takeaway, whether it's pizza, whether it's burgers. And who am I to go tell them, guys, don't waste plastic? Because they've never experienced it. They're like, screw you, I've never had this access to food, to abundance, to even disposable income. So it's a bit holier than thou, a bit patronizing for me to go tell them, guys, you should think green, or you should think. And I don't know, I want to ask you how it is, because Australia, from what I've heard from a couple of friends who live there, of course, it's climate, a lot of radical climate events, if you want to call it.
Big
events.
Country, we kind of spread over. Yeah.
But how's it been? I mean, for you, it's home, but have you noticed, over the past few years, and especially during the pandemic, how's it been dealing with stuff, dealing with the lockdown, dealing with badly planned lockdowns? And something I've been reading about is also tighter borders. So people who are from outside are finding it hard to get back in.
Oh, I know. Yes, it's kind of. I think now with Omicron, our states, because I'm in New South Wales, which is one of the biggest states in Australia, and you know it's hard because all the international arrivals generally hit either us or Melbourne, which is Victoria, the other state.
So you're Sydney, right? Sydney is New South Wales.
Yes,
right?
so I'm Sydney. Yes, so Sydney's New South Wales. And so what's happened, this is what happened to start off with. We Australia being remote has its benefits, but then you got the international arrivals and bang, COVID, we just hit one person, which I think that's what happened. It was the limousine driver for someone who was COVID positive. The limousine driver wasn't wearing a mask. And then that limousine driver, that one person, spread it across everywhere, like in New South Wales.
Yeah,
and it just went. And because it's interesting the way our government works, because yes, the states sometimes can be more powerful than the federal government. And so each of the states can actually impose rules and regulations on their own accord, right?
Yeah, but are the heads of your states called premiers?
Yes, they're called premiers.
I found that quite commie in itself. Like,
really?
I mean, quite communist. Like, aren't the communist names like premier or the words like comrades? I found it like, whoa, okay, is that still there?
Oh, unexpected for Australia.
I didn't expect it in a democracy, like it was quite strange. Like I read even where this kid took his dad somewhere to Byron Bay and he didn't wear a mask, he didn't follow protocol, and he was fined some ridiculous amounts, $10,000 for sitting in a cab without a mask. And I was like, that sounds a lot like Singapore. I didn't expect it to be so,
I know. You can't even, spit gum out and you get fined in Singapore. But look, this is what, I guess that's the surprising thing. It was, really, I mean, like I said, for our bigger states, we're kind of like given up on that now in a sense of, look, they've realized the impact on the economy. They can't keep people on lockdown. It's mentally not great for people, economically crippling. So, and we just can't control it. So, too bad poo, and we've got our vaccination rates now up to whatever 80% or whatever it is. Okay. So they've gone, you know what, we've done the best as we can. We can't, it's not sustainable the way we're doing it with the lockdowns. People need to see each other. We're social beings. Just wear masks. And actually what the Premier has actually said is it's about personal responsibility now. So if you don't want to catch it or you don't want to spread it inadvertently to anyone else, you need to wear a mask. There's no more mandates in a sense. I mean, they keep changing things a little bit here and there, but really, like now I'm just used to it. I walk out, I've got a mask. Like it's just what it is now.
No, it's a free for all right now in Bangalore as well. It's just like, as you said, I mean, there's no mandate. They are being a little cautious, especially with New Year's celebrations. So they've had a bit of a curfew in the nights. But otherwise, as you said, like if you are worried about your health, if you have someone at home who's susceptible to an infection, just take care of yourself and them, because no one's going to give a crap about you anymore. I think those days of distancing, all that is gone now.
Yeah, well, and the things, I think they were even debating about people who aren't vaccinated. You know what, if you get sick, you've got to pay for your own healthcare, because in Australia we have public health system, public health care, which means obviously, so the government obviously covers that to some degree.
So it's a penalty now saying if you don't get the vaccine, we're not going to look after you.
Well, then you've got to pay for your own body, because the hospitals are at breaking point, there's limited resources, right? And so they should they prefer to obviously provide care for people who actually have tried to do the right thing and who inadvertently maybe catch it, compared to those who don't. And and again, I do believe in personal responsibility. I think that's important.
It's a no-brainer, right? You look after the little area around yourself.
And then your consequences are yours, right?
Yeah. And it sort of starts at a grassroots level. If you are looking after yourself and your family, then that sort of spreads to the next family, and then next thing you know, a larger group of people are protected and are being being sensible about it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I've kind of written a kind of an online series based on that premise of consequences, and that every action or inaction you take has consequences. And
absolutely,
but actually target it to young people, because we're finding that the young people are the super spreaders. So because again, love life, woo, they just
they're a super spreader in all aspects. I think of panic, fear, misinformation, STDs, everything.
I was also thinking, yeah, exactly. You said what else?
No, I didn't want people to think I have a dirty mind. I do have a dirty mind, but I wanted to drop the STDs in the fourth point.
Look, it's real. It is. It is. It's just it's because it's also unbelievable sometimes when all the hotspots or the locations that they go COVID hotspot, right? That person's been to. One person, young person, they go to like about 15 different places all in one afternoon, and I remember looking at my partner and going, wow, that guy, they really have a social life. Compared to what we do,
No, but it's what I find interesting, is that Australia had a system because, I've been to Australia once and I went to Perth, so I don't know if that counts, but
they've got the hardest borders, man. That premier, I swear to God, poof, as soon as there's one COVID case, bang.
Yeah, at that point when I was there in 2017, there was this lady, I think, who was being mocked or ridiculed for her very sort of right sort of approach, which I think Pauline something.
Oh, yeah. She's Queenslander though, but yes.
Yeah. So she was the topic of conversation and how she's sort of anti-immigration. But what I always thought of Australia as, for me, it was Monash, it was the university there, and also how they were kind of encouraging people who have qualifications with a point system, saying you can come and settle here. There's work for people who are qualified. We encourage people. But then on the other hand, you hear people coming out with policies where no, if you're a Chinese student and you've gone back home, you can't come back in. Or I don't know how much of it is the media exaggerating it. I don't know how much of it is misinformation, which I'm receiving sitting in Bangalore. But it just almost feels like a country which at one point was open to the world coming there and sort of helping it grow, like how America attracted talent, is now all of a sudden saying, no, we want Australia for Australians, you kind of thing. Is that the truth, or am I getting wrong information?
It's hard because I'm also looking at it through a lens, obviously being Asian Australian, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so
why I was asking.
And the sentiments, particularly now between the tensions between Australia and China is a big thing, and it's not great from a diversity standpoint. I think we've got a long way to go, and it's and particularly with these tensions at the moment, it's worrying, and do
you experience anything, because you are an Australian, so I don't want to say anything from the locals because you are a local, you are as Australian as the person next to you. You were born there, exactly. But do you get a sense of when you see what's happening across the globe in America with Black Lives Matter or with all the shootings in Atlanta, do you feel unsafe as an Australian of Asian descent? I don't know if that's the right politically correct term.
No, you're right. I with COVID I definitely did. So until it felt unsafe. And that was the first time I've ever felt like that, actually.
In what way was it unsafe?
Because obviously all the media, I know media kind of really,
buggers it for everyone.
Heightens things, you know what I mean? And it just makes just multiplies things when it shouldn't be. But with all the, Asian hate crimes that came out, obviously with COVID, because obviously COVID, they're obviously pinpointing it, obviously Trump didn't help with that, that issue either. The China
virus.
Yeah, that's right. And but I think so for the first time in a while, I had friends who, experienced racism when they were on the street, right? And you saw videos about issues, and I just went, wow, and it is hard because look, my children are Eurasian, right? I've got a partner who's Caucasian.
Right.
He doesn't understand that. He would never understand.
As in he's Australian from
he's Australian
descent.
Caucasian,
right?
And he would never understand, and he can't in terms of how I would feel walking on the street during the day.
In Sydney, in a city as big as Sydney.
Yeah, right? or anywhere. It's very dubious. I think even the smaller towns, I'd probably feel worse, actually, or less safe, because there's less diversity in smaller towns, generally speaking. But the thing is, though, it's kind of always been there. I think coming from generations where we've had a lot of Australians who did fight in the World War II against the Japanese, and and all that kind of stuff, and unfortunately we get clumped into just Asians in general, regardless of what country you are from. You just kind of put in a I
think that happens to all the people, like the South Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Chinese.
That's right. It's all
and Indians are just, I don't know, we're lucky if we get called Mexican. Depending
oh my gosh.
No, I was called Mexican many times, but
anything that's yellow, brown skin, what I mean? Anything we kind of get put in this little thing. And but honestly, the sentiments are always were there anyway. This is just it's just heightened now. Like I remember when I was doing this Youth United Nations conference. This is when I was in university, and I was on the Commission on the Status for Women, and you get to pick countries when you're doing this thing. And I picked China, and I remember walking into this mock General Assembly, and basically all the other countries, and these are students from Australia, right? So all the other countries.
You're talking about this is like a model UN, is that what it is?
Yeah, model UN, like those, the youth model UNs. And I remember walking in there, and the whole China delegate, and we weren't all Chinese. We had a mix of all Australians. We just, representing different countries that we had interest in or whatever. Yeah. And all the rest of the delegations actually booed. Like they were really narky against the China team. Even
though you were all Australian.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Messed up,
and we all looked at each other and went, what? I mean, there were Caucasian guys who were in there as well, representing China, with the China hat on. Like we all looked at each other and what? And that was and I just went, wow. So when all this recently flared up, right, with the whole China-Australia tensions, I just went, that's nothing new, honestly, because I've seen what it was like before.
And I sense that even with America, even though I've never been, I mean, they're long enough.
Yeah, but there too.
I lived there to study there, and I think this is the thing. Sorry for interrupting, but just as an outsider, it's there. I think around the world, right? Of course, within India, it's more class. We have different colors, even though we're all Indian, we're all brown. But there is this sort of sense of the caste system, which causes this racial divide. But I mean, people are like, when I lived in America, I went as a student to a private college. I had like sort of if people use the word privilege, I was in a privileged situation. I didn't need money for I didn't have to do minimum wage jobs, none of that. But I'll be honest with you, I never felt like a first class citizen there at all, whether that country or the UK, because you always feel that, and however polite, and I had a disability, right? So people were extra nice to me, and I had some lovely people, some white people, people who were Mexican. My college was predominantly white, but I had a great time. I used to go to the local dive bar. I got along with the rednecks there. They were great people. But on some level, at least in the bigger cities, even though they're more colored people, you feel there's a bit more of a divide. And as you said, it's not surprising what's happening, because now more and more when people, I feel, this is my theory, when people aren't able to look at themselves and be comfortable with all that they are, good and bad, they start looking, or the second thing is when they get too comfortable in their own skin, they start looking outside and going, hey, my situation is like this because of, and they start pointing fingers, blaming because of the immigrants, because of the Mexicans, because of the Chinese people, or because of China's manufacturing has taken away so many jobs. So when you start looking out and blaming outside, you end up in a situation like where we are today, I think.
Yeah, look, and fundamentally, I mean, but if you're talking about also the UK, I mean, you mentioned about India has a class system. The UK is very big on that. Think about it. I mean, they've got kings and queens. Right, and you've got slaves, and back in the day,
the most feudal landowner and land worker. Yeah, that was the biggest thing.
So of course that would be there. And it's interesting when you're talking about that. I was thinking definitely it's funny because the bigger cities, you would think there's more diversity in bigger cities, but actual fact it's more segregated.
Absolutely. So, as a result of the diversity,
yeah, and it's funny, and because I mean, look, yes, I was born in Sydney, but I grew up in Darwin, actually, on the top end, Northern Territory. I went there when I was 7, and it's a small place, in Darwin. Great place to grow up, and it was so diverse. We have so many people from different nationalities there, and it was so mixed. And I don't know if it's just because it was a small town, but like I had friends from all different races, and never did I think that I was Chinese in a sense of, do you know what I mean? Like I never thought, I just felt like everyone else. I never once thought about my race. And then it was only until I went to university. Actually, it did actually happen when I went on China, because I went to China on student exchange actually. Right. But definitely when I went to university, I went to University in Sydney. And it was funny because that was when, even in my year group in optometry, that was when everyone sat in their own racial groups. Apart from us, where basically, like I lived on campus, so all of us college people were all bunched together anyway, generally speaking, but those who didn't all
Stuck to their groups.
Like the Koreans sat with the Koreans, the Japanese, like it was funny, and like you could tell who was who when it was really segregated, and it was just seriously, that's when I realized, wow, that's a massive.
And it's other way around as well. Because when I was in Wales, I was doing university there. I lived with my roommates were three white guys, for lack of a better explanation. Like one was from west of England, two from west of England. The other guy was from Wales. The other guy was a Sri Lankan guy, and myself. And I had this British born Indian guy visit me saying, "Dude, I want to iron my shirt before we go out partying." I said, "Sure, come on in." And then he came up to my room, ironed his shirt, and on the way down, he's like, "Dude, you actually live with 3 other white guys, mate. You should come over and live with us." I'm like, "Dude, what?" He was shocked that me coming from India, not being a British born Indian, that I've come all the way and now I'm living with. I'm like, dude, these are my friends.
What's wrong with that?
Why is it so strange? Like, one's a Sri Lankan guy who's a good friend. The other guy's, it's not like I wouldn't be as stupid to say I'm colorblind or I didn't see them color. No, these are guys we got along with, and I'd rather have people I get along with who are maybe different from me than people who are the same looking as me but annoying fucks, right? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really matter. It's it's the inside, right? Like, exactly.
Of course, as roommates, everyone, what color you are, whatever you may be, maybe it's male, female, male, you are going to have fights about who clean the dishes, who doesn't clean the shower. But it doesn't mean that just because you live with the same kind of people, you're going to have a completely peaceful life, which is complete bullshit. I think, in fact, it's the opposite, right? Because it sometimes gets, for the sake of a homogenous kind of setup, you end up compromising on meeting new people. You end up compromising on experiencing that place for what it is,
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the world's too small now. It's such an international community, really, international families. There's mixes of everything, and I think it was great. I can't remember what flight I was on, where basically I saw lots of Eurasian children, like they had, and I've never seen so much of it. And I went, oh my God, there's like actually not just my family, like there's all these Eurasian children. Like, it was like, but I still was probably going to somewhere in Europe, but you know what I mean? Like, it was.
But mixed children, according to my wife, mixed children, whether it's, white and Asian or white and Indian or Caucasian, whatever. I don't care about the word, whether it's black and Hawaiian. They're just apparently the cutest when they mix up, because my wife's like, can you be something else for some time? I'm like, what do you mean?
But you know what they say about that? It's survival of the fittest, right? Like, apparently, you got this, the more different and far apart your genes are, the stronger your offspring are, apparently. So, but then you do also get the opposites. I mean, there are some, fugly Eurasians as well. Like, you get the gingers, So
really, I'm glad you said it. See that?
You never know.
That message was sponsored by Tsu Shan Chambers.
I can say it. It's all good because I've got Eurasian babies.
So what is it like? You've been I'll be very honest with you. I've been to Singapore. I've never been to mainland China. I don't know any Chinese people. I know I met you, of course, but you're Australian from Chinese descent. I have a friend whose parents are Chinese. He's American, Asian. But what is it like? Because, and I don't expect you to be a representative for China, but what is it like? Because it's such media propaganda, what we hear, whether it's the most liberal or the most conservative news outlet, with China being this, China being that. You've been there. You spent some time there. You said you have friends there. What is it like? I think it's such a vast question, but maybe just in a nutshell, what's life like there?
Yeah. Oh, look, it depends on the lens I was there obviously during student exchange as a young person, and then I went back a few times to work as an older adult. So those are different lenses that I was viewing it. But I mean, look, they're a superpower for a reason, in a sense of they're super smart. Like, they work incredibly hard. It's such a survival thing, because again, it's like India, so many people. You've got to kind of survive. And but I found when I was there, it's like they were my friends or my family. And I think this is more very Asian as well. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, you call your good friend an auntie if they're older, or there's just a respect thing. There's a respect thing there. And there's a loyalty there that was often unspoken, right? And I, as I said, like, I was so close to not coming back the first time, because I was so close to the people I was with, and it kind of broke my heart to leave them. Do you know what I mean? And and I mean, the country, it is beautiful, and often, look, talking to my friends in China, often is a lot of propaganda, because they don't really have the issues. Like they're all open. They're open, going, hey, come on in. Like they're embracing but it's the West that sometimes put these things on. But
because we think, like, from if you were to ask me, and I've read a couple of books about, like, the dynasty, back in, I don't know the name, maybe the time of Confucius, or the time of so much progress in China. Like when you look at the old, I mean, of course, there's a lot. Every country has its past, right? But if you ask me, just from what I read in the Western news, it's like, oh, it's smokestacks, iPhone factories making iPhones with children in them, and then it's just dogs being eaten, wet markets, bats being sold. Like it's such.
Look, I think in every country, there's going to be. Look, it's not. I'm not saying that doesn't exist.
Of course it does. My point is, but that's not the only thing there, right?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. But it's like any country. There's good and bad in everything, right? There's always two sides, And it just depends on the side you want to see. And that's kind of like, that's the bias filter lenses of what we tend to do as humans, I think, sometimes. If we're looking for someone to blame, or something we're trying to look for fault in something, we're going to see it. It doesn't matter what someone else says. If we believe it, that's what we're going to believe, Yeah,
it's like even Russia, right? It's not, I'm sure, like, if you ask my uncle, he's like, oh my God, I'd move there tomorrow. He loves Russia because he likes drinking. He loves drinking. I think half his liver is settled down in Africa. I mean, sorry, Russia. Why did I say Africa?
The vodka.
Yeah. He's just like, it's pickled in vodka sitting in Vladivostok or somewhere. No, but it's such an unfortunate thing, because that's the thing with globalization. You said that perfectly, right? We're such a small international community, but instead of it being a thing where we share and we become a small world where we can connect, like I'm sitting here in Bangalore talking to you in Sydney right now, we are moving to different parts of the world, trying to find our own little group of people who look the same as us, who speak the same language, eat the same food. Well, I think it's great to have Indian friends if I come to Australia, but I'd like to have a diverse group of friends. That is what international, global existence means, right? Like, and if you look at my friend circle, I'm not saying I'm better than other people, but I like to have a group of friends who are different from me, who have experienced a different life, who bring to the table different conversations, different experiences. Like when I talk to, like, my roommate from the US, he's from Seattle, and he talks about growing up in Alaska and how it was, how cold it was, how they pickle food. And I'm just like, dude, I would never hear this from an Indian friend who lived in LA, or, you know what I mean? It's such a different, and I mean, this guy and I are so different, but the fact that we get along, have common things to talk about, we can, sort of bond over a bottle of Jack. It's beautiful fun. And I don't get that.
And maybe it's also too that because we've had exposure, I think it's also because we come obviously from a non-Caucasian background, that we are exposed to other cultures and other foods, as an example. I was really surprised. Like, as I said, I've been in Sydney for quite a while now, and I've been living on the North Shore, Northern Beaches, which is very, very white, I guess, privileged background.
Right.
And I took but the thing is, about 10 minutes drive away, there's Chatswood, which is on the North Shore, and it's so many Asians there, and the food's amazing, right? And so I remember for my my birthday, I invited some friends from the Northern Beaches who go to the same school as my kids, and they're all Caucasian women, but they're just lovely people. I took them to a hot pot, right? And I was
a
like,
hot pot, is the hot pot the same thing as a bibimbap, the Korean thing, or is it like
Korean bibimbap? Like, well, that's like a rice dish thing. I mean, the hot pot, I guess, even within China, the hot pot's like you either got soup in there, either chili or clear soup, and you put all your raw stuff in there, boil it, and you eat it, kind of stuff.
Cooks in that, right?
Yeah, it cooks in it. It's like that. I remember taking there anyway, and they'd never tried it. They've never they've never had it before in their lives. Down the road. Yeah. And I went, what? And I was so surprised because my friends are like, they're so open and supportive, and just, there's such nice people. But I was so surprised they'd never eaten it. And I went, what the hell?
I think there's a
taking
group,
you
as you
out
mentioned.
again.
Yeah. And there's a group, like, as you mentioned, right? They know the things to say. They know about cultures. They probably would have read up saying, when the first Chinese settlers came to Australia. But if you show them a chopstick, you won't know the right end from the wrong end. Like they don't do that. I mean, they don't, I wouldn't say the right thing. They don't do it, but they're seen saying the right thing. And I think the world is a lot of those people nowadays with
Well, it just
whatever the
also might be
topic.
also all they know. Do you know?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean. It could just be
absolutely.
because, like often now, like if we get together on the northern beaches, we go to the pub. Like
Yeah,
or like it's very, you know, uh, food that's just very generic. If you don't, all Western food, right?
yeah, yeah,
In my opinion, and I think that's all kind of they live in this little bubble. Right,
yeah,
like it's very rare for them to venture across the bridge, and yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I think it's because we did grow up we travel, we want to experience different cultures. There's a
yeah,
big difference between my friends who stayed in Darwin and friends who moved away outside of that town.
yeah.
Massive difference in terms of things. But then,
Very true.
yeah. So and this is the thing with education as well, and this is why I think it's amazing that you studied abroad because. Education is really important because it does broaden your horizons a lot more. I think.
Yeah. I think traveling abroad away
Yes,
from home for
travel.
education, and if it could be outside your country, nothing like it. I think because
Yeah,
academically, I don't remember much. I wasn't a grade A student by any means. In fact, I was
you're
like,
just drinking too much.
absolutely. In fact, in my fourth year, final semester, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd taken anthropology. I hate sociology, and I majored in sociology. And I was like, I hate this course, right? But you mentioning that reminds me of an interesting thing. Like a lot of friends of mine, a few of, I mean, not, I have a few friends. I mean, like a lot of the Indian friends I have who are American
Yeah,
Indian, right? American born Indians.
yeah,
They grew up with a very different perspective. And I mentioned that thing about being a first class, third class citizen in a first world country and a first class, et cetera, et cetera. And they find it a little bit more confusing what to be. And then as a result, what happens, their parents who went to the US or to the UK in the 70s have this perception of India, which is a little bit more conservative. There was a scarcity sort of complex when they went, and they brought their kids up with this, like with this Bollywood, this Hindi influence. But when Indians from India go there now, they're a lot more, they spend a lot more, they're a lot more open minded, they're okay with dating different people. In fact, I'll tell you this, and this is not something I'm making up, in the Bay Area, which is your Sunnyvale, San Francisco, San Jose, a lot of
yeah,
Indians who
yeah.
live there. The parents, who are obviously like now in their 60s or 70s, have this thing for their kids. I don't know if it's a law, it's a rule, but they have a preference saying when their daughters or their sons are getting married, no BMWs. No blacks, no Muslims, no whites. Can you believe that?
Oh,
Yeah,
actually, my mind actually went to cars for a second. I had no idea
yeah.
what you're talking.
No, no, that is
Wow,
yeah for
really?
yeah, for them it's only Audis, but yeah, no jokes apart.
Ah,
But it's yeah, apparently they have this thing. I mean, I don't know if it's everyone. Of course, it's not everyone, but there are a few people. It's an unsaid thing. They don't marry a black, don't marry a Muslim, don't marry a white, and it's so. We're talking about Caucasians, and this is Indians sitting in the Bay Area. They just don't want it, and many of them work at companies where the it's a mixed company with the likes of the Googles and the likes of Facebooks and Apples and
yeah.
Intel. Yeah, and these are people with that mindset.
I think, well, this is the thing. I think you're right with those who've migrated over. They carry
Yeah,
those old traditions and belief systems, right? And
yeah,
they come over into another country. They're still holding on to that
yeah.
because and they haven't changed.
So it
Whereas
works
the
both
guys that
ways. Yeah,
that's right. Whereas the guys actually live in the country. I hear this about my Greek friends as well. The
yeah.
Greeks over there are actually more open, I guess, with the current times
The
than
Greeks
the
living right
sometimes
now,
the
right in
right,
Athens. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
all that came across and are living in a foreign country because they've held so tight to things, even though they're
Mm,
living in a Western world. And yeah, so it's yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, but at the same time, I think it's sad too because isn't that the whole point with why did they come over and leave the country then if they didn't want to?
yeah, absolutely. Like this is what gets me, right? Like when you look at people, especially people like earlier, like if you look at the people like the Spaniards, the Portuguese, the British, the Dutch, who basically just left home saying, I hate home, I want to go see what's outside, now saying, I want to be home and I don't want anyone to come into my house. Like it's like what are you on about, right? Like
I
at one
know.
point you went everywhere in the world and now you're scared of the world, and I find that baffling. And now suddenly Indians are curious and other people are curious. And I think it's great to be curious. And I think when you're curious, you're going to get burnt. You're going to have some people, and I'm not saying whether they're white, whether they're Chinese, whether they're Asian, whatever. There are annoying assholes in every group, and they're going to pass some comments which are insensitive, which are insulting. But if you're not willing to take that, it's not going to make you more resilient. And as a result, you're not going to experience what life has to offer, because for every one of those insults, I love sitting in pubs because you meet some of the coolest people, some of the grumpiest people, some of the most well-traveled, some of the most hilarious stories. And I mean, this was my opening joke in Australia when I came to Perth at the Fringe, and I was like, man, I came to Australia and I hate the pubs over here because the guy's like, hey, mate, what's your problem? And I'm blind. He's like, everyone here is blind as well, because that's what you guys.
I love that.
That's my horrible Australian accent. I apologize for any Australian listening.
I love it. Oh, that's so cool. Oh man, I was just thinking you should try to come to the Melbourne Fringe then, you know?
Yeah, the MICF. Yeah, I'd love to come to the Melbourne Fringe, but I need to write a new special because that's the only joke I had for Australia, the blind joke.
Oh, it will be spectacular because as I said, look, they're, that'd love you. It'd be great.
I think it's a good time to write a new special because there's a lot of, as you said, just what we're talking about with on a macro level with race and with people and geographies. I think it's happening in comedy where there are only a certain number of things which are so-called approved, and even festivals are working on that. I've noticed, like, if you are black, lesbian, and from a marginalized group, you're going to win the Melbourne Fringe. You know, I think it's sad, but it's coming into the arts if you have the right check boxes. So I want you to talk about, firstly, I think I've been interrupting you, but can you, for my listeners, in your own words, tell them what you do and how you got there?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm aware of many hats to start off with. I mentioned before that I am an optometrist by trade, but I'm also an actor and a writer and a producer for screen.
Right.
Yeah. So
I love that because you make sure people can see clearly and that way they can watch your movies.
There you go. Oh, how funny. Yes. Well, you know, eyes are the window to the soul, and you know, I want to express messages.
No, my movie's great. It's just that your power is bad.
That's it. Oh god. Oh, here, let me fix that for you. But well, this is the thing with the whole vision thing, because look, I do come from a very public health background. I've spent a lot of time volunteering around the world. And that's my thing. I guess, in terms of aspirations. And I want to obviously make a difference in a positive way through storytelling. Yeah. And it's always something I've always kind of wanted to do. It's like, you know, it's a classic, again, stereotypical thing. You know, got into medicine after high school, got into full-time musical theatre. Was I allowed to do the creative aspirations? No, but I went, nah, not doing medicine either. Screw that. And I'm gonna, what part of the body do I actually like looking at? Well, it's the eyes. So there you go. So that, but
they tend to be the cleanest for the most part. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Well, and so but it wasn't until obviously I had my kids that I went back into it. I just again, it's one of those things that sometimes what your passion, what your calling is, I guess calling, but you want to do in your life. And if I could pick anything in the world, and I could, if I could, then that's what all I'd do. And so I've been transitioning for many years to try to stop the optometry. But I still do that casually on the side because it's expensive actually to develop your film projects. There's a lot. I was going to say
Australia is a very expensive country for people who just gone there going, I've been to Europe, it's there, euros, whatever, dollars, and suddenly you land up in Australia. And how much is it for Nando's, for two people at Nando's? $25, $30? Like what? It's like
what? I guess it depends on, the thing is, you went to Perth though. Small towns in Australia are expensive. Perth and Darwin are really, really expensive, same as Tasmania, because it takes ages to fly there. You've got to fly everything over there, Right. But at the same time, wages are a lot higher as well, generally speaking.
Yeah, like a minimum wage, for a restaurant worker is about $20, which is quite high. Yeah.
Well, yes, but and you do get paid a lot more in those places, but then there's not as many resources. So then you kind of, so it's a catch-22. That's why I think people love living in the bigger cities, because there's so much more to do and see, and food is so much cheaper in the bigger cities.
Oh, it is? Okay. No, I think in Perth, the only thing which was cheap was meth. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, no, Perth is, but as I said, like,
Mm.
you know, if you want a really laid back town and, you know, and the lifestyle, it's all about lifestyle, right? Really for those towns. You know, and look, they've had a big mining boom. There's a lot of money in WA, right? So obviously there's specific reasons for why you'd be there. And it's beautiful. Like one of my best friends is there. So
yeah, we went to a lovely town down. I don't know whether it's down or up, but this place was it Fremantle. Fremantle was.
Oh yeah, Freo. Yeah, they call it Freo. Yeah.
Yeah, nice place. It was good. Like I saw. I mean, I don't know why we went there. My wife wanted a mug. She has this habit of buying mugs everywhere she goes.
Oh
like,
right.
if she wanted to buy a mug, I'm like, are you fucking crazy? So we went to this place. There was like a bazaar, like a guy on stilts. I'm like, where the hell have I landed up? Like I came for a comedy festival, and now I'm outside like this pottery shop where she's buying a mug from Fremantle. I'm like, great.
Oh, look, you know what? She's practical because often, you know, it's spoons. You remember we used to travel and use those spoons, of those silver spoons you could buy as souvenirs. I don't know if you remember those around.
No.
You never did the spoon thing.
No.
Mugs are definitely more your thing.
I wasn't let out of the house till I was 40. I'm not even 40 yet. Joking.
Oh God.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
no, it's amazing that. So you produce movies, and so what's the space you're telling stories, and what's the kind of what kind of stories do you want to tell? Like what is what drives those?
Well, I discovered at film school that which I shouldn't have surprised me, but it kind of went, of course, because you know you go through your thing, but what is your voice? You know, what's your messaging? And I discovered that love is actually my thematic. Not surprisingly, I was always a bit like that, even in high school. So there you go. But but for me, it's similar to what we were talking about before. You know, love is love. It shouldn't matter what background you're from, whatever ability you have, and regardless of color, you know, love is love, right? And so, so part of my so a few of my projects have always been about that to some degree. Like, my last feature film was a bit about deaf culture and pride. It's called Unsound. And, you know, it was one of the first, films, you know, to be screened in mainstream cinemas in Australia that had significant Auslan Sign Language. And it also, you know, and it's, again, it doesn't matter what your background is, right? And so it's, so that's the kind of, anyway, that tends to run through it. But then, as having said that too, you know, I've written a TV show that's a thriller, but again, it's more about the messaging and the social impact messaging, and you know, often like for that one, it's again inspired probably from events of what I've experienced in terms of you know, with children, how now there's so much controversy in terms of, I guess, you know, what's sexually appropriate, you know, when you grow up and you're choosing partners and how you choose to behave and everything. And we're in this time, you know, yes, Black Lives Matter, we're in the Me Too movement, you know, we're in all these different significant change, I guess, times of change. And so I want to explore those, but in a more empowering kind of, you know, water cooler kind of conversational way where it's like, oh, hold on a minute, this is interesting. This is actually going to create some thought and provoke some thought here. That again, different viewpoints, right? And sometimes I think that's what we need as the human race to be able to look at different perspectives, because often one way is not always the right way. There's always multi-dimensional viewpoints on anything. And it's showing audiences those different viewpoints or seeing something differently in someone else's shoes and going, actually, okay, maybe the way I was doing something maybe wasn't, you know, could be done differently, and be more, I guess, empathetic and sympathetic to other people, right? So the type of work I do is definitely more very social impact. It has to have a strong enough message for me to get up every day and fight for it, because it is so hard getting anything up at all. Seriously, if you ever see a movie, I'm telling you, you'll be like, I always just go, Jesus, man, how much they would have taken to make that.
I think that's one of those things it's easy to shit on, going, what a crap production. But when you're actually involved, man, I've done a couple of ad films. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like crazy, like 4 in the morning, what do you want me to do? Smile? Are you crazy? No way. And but I can only imagine for the people behind the scenes, like the directors, the producers, the editors, it's so much work. And that's one of the reasons why I like stand-up is you write a joke, you fine-tune that joke, do it at open mics and go boom, it's on stage. As opposed to you think of you think of an idea, you write the script, you write the screenplay, and next thing, how many months before it's out there, right? Or years?
It's years. It can be years. Like there have been some films that take 5-7 years to write, even to get the script right.
Crazy,
and the standard is so high at the moment. You really need to work and keep working it. And even when you think that okay, you've got it a good place, I mean, it's so subjective as well. This is the thing, right? So you're not going to please everyone because it is so subjective and people have different belief systems. So you need to be true to your story also.
I want to ask you this because, I think I want to talk about the actual thing, whether with OTT platforms, it's become easier. But I want to just talk about this one thing about love, right? Because I feel we're living in a day and age which is actually better for human beings of all sorts than what it was, say, 200 years back, because there is a little bit more, but with issues like transgender, with sexuality, with women's rights, with all these things coming to the forefront, being addressed. I think that's great that we are doing that with disability rights, with animal rights. But I think, as you mentioned, that one thing I feel in all this that's missing is this sense of love. I think that's not there. I think everyone wants to yell about their issues, but I feel that what you're doing is so important because this I don't know, how would you define love for you? Like, is it a certain word? Is it a certain emotion? So I want to understand that, because I think that is something which people listening might appreciate, because I think everyone has the right intention, but if there's no love, then it just becomes a yelling match, becomes a fighting thing, saying my problem is bigger than your problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's all encompassing, really. And I think it's how really you feel. It's at the end of the day, love is a feeling. It's there's no barriers with that, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't help what you feel. It is what it is. And it's very powerful, I believe, because it can dissolve conflicts in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah,
really.
Yeah.
No pun intended with freaking when I use heartbeat, but yeah, and when it boils down to it, like if you think about it, when you've got a goal or you want to do something for yourself, that's aspirations. I mean, that's love for yourself. So there's love of self. There's so many different types of love, right?
Yeah.
As well. And when it comes down to it, I think maybe we don't realize it so much, but our actions are driven by love in some way, if you really, really draw down to it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that need to go back, especially the love which is not directed at yourself, I think, is to go back and do that repetitively, to whether it's helping people, whether it's serving people, or whether it's telling stories. And it's nice to hear that, because otherwise love is so defined so stereotypically, right? Whether it's that perfect relationship, or whether it's
romantic love.
Romantic love, yeah. But I think that you're right. There's this love that you see people, like when I hear of people who are working at rescue shelters, people who are working in wildlife, people who are working in shelters for women who have been domestically abused, to go back, because it's not easy. I mean, I talk to some of them and they're like, you know what, it never gets easy seeing a new case, seeing a new animal that's come in which has been mauled or been run over, or seeing a human being who's been abused. It never gets easy, but I think that's love, going back and helping them over and over and over again. It's an uphill battle, but they keep doing it. I think that is nothing short of love, right?
Yeah, well, that's why people, I think, keep going. That's, I mean, during hard times, there's something there. And, whether it is just, as I said, well, love for yourself, to keep surviving, or because you've got a bigger, I know it's very stereotypical again, but, the parent who doesn't give up because, well, they keep going to save the child, right? Yeah. Because of the love of the child. Oh my God, I just had a flash of Harry Potter and, the whole sacrifice the mother made for Harry Potter. Anyway, but you know what I mean?
I can completely imagine that visual.
My brain just went.
Oh God, it's crazy how that book has affected my life. It's just like, what was it? Lily spreading her arms in front of Harry and the green. Yeah, it's that's love,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think
yeah,
she's put it,
yeah.
even though I know it's a fantasy fiction thing, but the way how Dumbledore explains to Harry how love is so powerful and that Voldemort can't exist in him because the pain is because of the love that the pain that Harry's love is causing to Voldemort's soul. And I think that's a beautiful thing for children to read and even adults to read.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's what's interesting. Like there's those messages there, right? And at
Yeah,
the end of the day, you know, there's so many stories we're saying and telling, and a lot of it, again, boil it down. What was it really about? I
yeah,
mean, there's
yeah,
obviously broader messages, but then, yeah. So, um, yeah, it's well, again, I just think it's still about and it's hard because it's humans. I think once we realize that really there's not that much that separates us in the world,
Mm.
really.
I think the
Um,
distractions are the ones that are making us focus on what is different about us. And I think it's easy to control people when they're distracted, saying, "Hey, look there, that person's taking your job. Look there, this person is
or
different from
making
you."
it worse. Like, yeah, like
Yeah,
sometimes I do think that some people, um, I know they're advocates for whatever, whatever the agenda they're pushing. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah,
sometimes it actually doesn't help.
yeah,
It sometimes it actually can put off allies
yeah,
who are actually supportive, and it can actually make it even more isolating or yeah. So, and I think if we do something, and it's all about intention and actions. I think if all of us, we actually did something with intention through love or
yeah,
from a good coming from that place, then
mm,
how could we really get it wrong? Because
yeah,
if we felt, you know what I mean, really, if you think about it, like, because they're not the intentions there, we're coming from that place. It's
yeah.
different from having some agenda that we're trying to push through. You know what I mean? It's not from that place, and that's when I think we tend to fuck it up. Part of my language, I just said that.
No,
Yes.
that's perfectly fine. I think I've already cursed like enough.
On recording.
Yeah, no, I think I've set the expectations pretty high with the cuts. I'm surprised that you waited this long.
Love it.
No, I'm so glad that there are people like you telling stories which need to be heard. And um, so, okay, how is it now with what has the experience been? I think we'll wind it up with this question or this topic is
Sure.
how as a storyteller, as a producer, as a writer, as an actor, with the movement from traditional movie screens or network television to now these platforms, be it the Amazons, the Netflix, the HBO Maxes, whatever they may be, the thousands. I'm sure in Australia you have the plenty of them. Um, what is access easier? Is funding easier? Is your story getting picked up easier? What is the kind of the ecosystem for a creator in this space right now? Maybe specific to
Mm.
Australia, or maybe just from your experience in the world today.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, I keep hitting my
interesting. It's
mic.
obviously changed the landscape. Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. It's definitely changed the landscape. You would think that it makes it easier in a
Mm.
sense of that there are so many more platforms now, all demanding content. And
Yeah.
there is things. There is so much content, like, and the thing is because there are a few powerhouses, so you've got the big ones like the Netflix and the Amazon and all
Mm.
those, and I think for producers it can be challenging because obviously we want to get our projects up, and
Yeah.
they know that, right? Which means that sometimes the deals that are made or they're in a position of power, right? So it's
Yeah.
just more about how much do you want to give away,
Yeah.
potential essentially, and is it sustainable for producers if they're not given a back end? It's not traditional theatrical where cinemas where there's revenue coming from cinemas all over the world kind of thing, and it's uncapped in a sense, whereas the streamers basically will go, okay, we'll give you the money to make your film,
Yeah.
great, so you don't have to worry about trying to get government funding or whatever, but this is how much it'd be, and there's limited back end, or if any back end is capped, that's what it is.
Right. Right.
Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Or
Right.
they pay shit all for your film. Does that make sense, to go on their platform? Because they know
Mm.
that everyone wants to put their stuff on there, and they've got
Yeah.
choice, right?
And they seem to be in the driver's seat right now, right? Just saying, you know what, we know that you we know that you want to be on our platform. So, and I've been in a situation like that where someone's like, oh yeah, we're going to can you cut up your 1 hour special into 5 minutes and sell that for like $1,000? I'm like, no, not that the $1,000 wouldn't have thing, but it's like, why would I cut up my piece of work, right?
Well, it's different. I mean, look, there's a way of also thinking. I mean, it is clever sometimes to exploit it in different formats. It depends on the story. So yeah. So yeah, it really depends. But I think, but at the same time, I think it just propels. Well, my thinking is that it just propels you to make sure your project is as best as it can be, and actually makes you even more creative, because you have to make it really so damn different and so damn good to get their attention. Because you've still got the main gatekeepers, you've still got the funding bodies who are very narrow, and they talk about change and diversity and all this stuff, but do they actually support it? Not really. Do you know what I mean? They're still very fear driven, and very risk adverse, generally speaking. So you've still got that happening. So it's still, you still have to. The good thing though is that the guys who I guess are more willing to take risks are more willing to take on board the projects. But I think for someone like me I tend to do more bolder, riskier projects, if that makes sense. Like, it's really hard to comp the film to something that's done before, because
that's why you reached out to me in the first place.
That's right. I was like, oh my god. I was like, oh my god. Like, I was blown away. It was amazing. But yeah, but
it is hard to tell those stories, and it's nice that you are telling those stories. And I mean, there are a few people backing you, of course, which is great, because I think they need to be told. Sorry, I didn't want to take away from what you were saying there. I just wanted to just add the fact that you need all kinds of stories to be told, and it will be nice if there are people backing the mainstream, of course, with the famous actors and the famous storylines and the plots. But also, I think, just like everything we've spoken about today, I think when you say the world is a diverse place, you need to also show it in entertainment, right? That the diversity does exist, not that every pirate is Johnny Depp or.
That's right. And the thing is that there is, because it's still changing. As I said, we're still a long way to go. It is still harder to get those projects up. And in my view, because I guess particularly when you're trailblazing it, if you know what I mean, there's no other. You're not following. It is harder because you've got to break through more barriers to do so. But but it also, there's more pressure to make sure it's even damn good, right? Because the thing is, if the film does well or whatever, it makes it so much easier for then other people then to follow, because even though it's been really hard, you've kind of at least paved the way for such other films, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I've been trying to kind of obviously form a team that get that and are there for the long haul, who will keep pushing through to break through all the political crap and all the other shit that you've got to kind of do to kind of get something up.
No, that's brilliant. So can you, for people listening right now, if they're in Australia and they want to say reach out to you, maybe for work, maybe to find out, or for people who just want to watch the films you made, of course, I'll put all the links in the description. But if you want to just say it for yourself, some of the things, highlight some of the work you've done, so they can head over and check it out and admire what you've done. Can you just drop?
Thank you. No, that's cool. I mean, look, my production company is called Wise Goat Productions.
Love the name.
Because I am born in the year of the goat, but it's about aspiring. And just provoking thought and telling issues that matter, right? So on the website there, I've got obviously films in development and films that I've completed, and as I said, you'll find, like, for example, my last feature, which is coming on Netflix actually in February. It's going to be also in Fuse TV in the US, which is 38 million households.
Nice.
So there's that, and then even like back in the day, like years ago, my short films, they're on broadcast on TV now. That I say they want content,
right?
So there's all so there's a lot of things there they can basically look at on that website to see what I've done and what the team's done. So
and if you ever travel up north to the North Beach and you want hot pot, you know who to contact.
That's right. If you want to know like where the good food is. I also discovered recently taro lattes. I don't know, you know, taro, the purple kind of potato taro.
Oh no, I thought it was tarot cards. Like I thought lattes that tell you your future.
Oh, tarot cards. Hey, see, you're I like those too. However,
can I get a latte without milk? Oh, your future's wrong.
We can read your tea for you. But, yeah. No,
so it's made out of. Is that a kind of yam? Is that what?
Yeah, it is. It's the best thing I've ever. Like, it's my favorite. You know, I don't know if you guys have this. You know, the pearl milk teas with a little bubble. Those Sago,
bubble tea.
The bubble tea. Yeah?
I haven't had it. My niece loves it. She lives in Singapore.
Oh,
she
it's
loves
the best thing. Yeah. And taro pearl milk teas are my favorite. And so when I went to the cafe and there was taro lattes, because normally I love chai, right? Chai is like my favorite all-time tea. And they had taro lattes. I went, oh my God. And it was the best thing I've ever tasted. And I haven't been able to find it anywhere yet apart from this one place.
If I ever come to Australia, please remind me not to drink that. I'm gonna have a good old pint of lager, mate.
Oh, you're gonna have the BB and the
I don't know which one.
Beer cold.
Just something that gets me totally blind.
Oh goodness me. Well, you know, Foster's. Actually, that's the one. I don't know what the main beer is, but I remember when I was in China.
No. They tried passing off your crap on us in India, Foster's, and they kept saying Foster's Australian for beer. I'm like, no, this is Australian for piss. It's horrible. Yeah. I'm sorry if any Australians listening right now besides you, but I can't drink Foster's. I don't know if the Indian version was made worse. It was just so bad. But
I don't know. It's just I think it must be what we export. Like seriously,
possibly. No, it was also made here. I think the water's different, but I don't know I've had some of the micro beers, brewery beers in Perth, but some of the basic lagers, I don't know what you guys had. I think maybe Kronenberg or Carlsberg. I don't think it's native to Australia, but I did have a VB. I think I had a VB, and I think that was good. But not Foster's.
Okay, well,
sorry, if anyone here has a stake in Foster's, I apologize for that sensitive comment about peeing and
branding.
Yeah. But honestly, cool. Suzanne, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and for reaching out in the first place and having this chat.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was just, as I said, maybe serendipity that I came across your YouTube channel and I went, hey, why not? Let's just reach out because you never know. And
it was good. It was great that it's been a few months since that happened, and glad that you agreed to do this podcast. So appreciate it. I'll put all the details for your website in the description. And good luck with. I know you're working on a movie. Good luck with that, and hopefully we get to meet in good old sunny Australia.
That's it. And then I shot you a beer.
Yeah, hopefully by then I get my accent right. Yeah, hopefully get my accent.
You know what's going to be? It's going to be the Melbourne Fringe. Melbourne Comedy Festival. Huge.
Yeah, if you're listening, organizers, if you're listening, you know who to call.
You would be great for it.
Sold out stadiums.
You'd be great for it. Seriously, it's freaking great that the comedy festival.
Yeah. I don't know if they can handle my jokes yet. I don't know if Melbourne's thick-skinned enough right now to handle my jokes.
I think
the one joke I have, the blind joke.
I think they'll want anything to get out of, like, you know what I mean? They've been in lockdown. What, the city with the longest time in lockdown in the world?
Right.
They're dying to get out. So
I'll be there soon.
Yeah.
As this podcast releases.
But yeah, well, look, thanks for having me. And it was so lovely speaking with you. And, we'll keep in contact for sure.
For sure. Good luck with everything, and good luck with your new movies and your new stories, and with
see how we go.
Yeah. Good luck.
All right. Well, look, thanks for having me. You take care of yourself.
And you. All the best.
Take care.
Cheers.